Good evening. Welcome to the Too Much Time on Our Hands podcast. I'm getting a chance to say hello, so I thought I'd make the most of it.
I love that.
No, it's a very stripped back affair this evening, affair being the operative word. No Duncan, no Tom. They've both been killed for their meat.
Yeah.
And I think
very
we all
tasty
know
too.
which meat we're talking about there. So it's just me, I'm Russ, and Dan. How are you?
Good, yeah. Raring to go. This is one of those ones where I've actually had to do a bit of work before the actual pod. So.
Wow, I think this is one of those. Let's be honest. This is one of those ones where we find out who actually makes a difference to the podcast and who doesn't, and there might be some streamlining that we need to have a think about.
It's very true. Yeah, it would be nice to cut down on the payroll.
Cut down the payroll. Cut down on the excessive toilet breaks. The stealing of post-it notes. It's all like mine. It's all like it's not really stuff you could go to HR about, but it niggles, you know.
Yeah, I spend a lot of
taking
time
the piss on the vaping breaks, that kind of thing.
I spend a lot of time in HR, so our HR department is,
an HR department.
Our HR department. Sally's lovely though, so she understands. It's good. Yeah. I don't know where we're going to go with this.
Any further comments before you actually get into trouble?
Yeah, no, as in like I'm talking at the Too Much Time on Our Hands HR department.
Mm-hmm.
It's Sally, it's Fred.
Is this you trying to think of a name?
Yeah, and I need my D&D random name generator.
I say you can come up with 5 random dwarf bandits off the top of your head,
mate. All
but
online,
you can't think
of
the name of a normal person that might work in an office.
Yeah, so we got Fred, Sally, and I said Jack. Well, I know a Jack, so he doesn't work in HR.
I mean, we could have one anyway.
Yeah, a different Jack.
There's loads of them.
That would make sense. It's another guy called Dan. It's
I was
weird.
nearly called Jack, but then I was nearly called Jack, but then I wasn't.
Really?
Yeah, I mean that's about it as far as the story goes.
I was going to be called Christian, but the Elton John song Daniel happened, and then I was named Daniel. I'm named after the Elton John song, which I think is quite cool. I used to hate that, but now I love it. And if I was a girl, I'd be called Joanne. I don't know what I've got now. That's it. Does Tom have all the good anecdotes? I don't believe that.
No, don't let it get into your head. He comes out with 100% pure shit just as much as you do.
I think that's it. I think there's just it's unfiltered shit between you and me now tonight. I'm quite excited though.
Anyway,
what
are we talking about tonight, Daniel?
We are going through the final 4 Super World Cup of movie villain entries.
Super World Cup.
That's a bad start. We're going through the 4 finalists of the World Cup of movie villains. Now, we already know who's made it through to the final. I don't know whether I announced that, so I don't know whether to say anything now or save it till the end.
Well, so we've got I can get the finals for East and West up, so we can have like the final 8, if you like. So like the final 4 from each one.
Yeah, no, I've got the final 4.
Yeah.
I've not done anything for the other 4 that didn't make it. So the final 8 that became the final 4, but we know who the final 2 are from the East and the West.
Yep.
Right? Cool. But I don't know whether I announced that. I was meant to do it last week. I don't think I did it.
Let's assume that nobody was paying attention, and we'll just do it anyway.
I don't believe that for a second, Russ.
No, couldn't possibly be. No. Right, who are we going to look at first?
Darth Vader. Buckle up, guys. I've got a load of stuff on Darth Vader.
I believe I've heard of him.
Yeah, so in case anyone doesn't know, what we're actually going to do is go through a little bit of history on each of these characters, some interesting facts about them, and then discuss what we like about them, Like Tom not being here for Darth Vader is interesting because he's read all the extended universe stuff and he would love this shit. So, oh well. So Darth Vader is unsurprisingly a creation by George Lucas for the movies Star Wars.
A Star War.
A Star War, the original Star War, to be precise, A New Hope. Good Lord. Darth Vader's signature look and breathing has terrorized kids since the 70s. He's one of the most recognizable villains in movies.
I mean, it is an absolute signature look, isn't it?
It is.
That is exactly what RuPaul will call it.
Yeah. Do you think she would approve of Darth Vader's look?
I think if you tried to do it now, you wouldn't get any sort of... you'd have to imagine that being the first time you had seen that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't
I
get
remember.
it wouldn't be considered very original if you rocked up on the catwalk with that at the moment.
One of those weird memories as a kid. I remember my dad's mate turning up to a fancy dress party dressed as Darth Vader, and me absolutely shitting myself.
Nice.
And just running away. So central villain Darth Vader was in the Star Wars story from the get-go, but had a number of different names. In the original treatment, was known as General Vader. He was known as one of a few Vader-esque characters, including Prince Valorum, the leader of the Knights of Sith, Kane Starkiller, a half-human, half-machine cyborg. Second draft then changed General Vader to Darth Vader and took on like all of an amalgamation of all those things.
When you hear about all this backstory, this is the stuff that Lucas was scribbling in his notebooks. It does feed into that. Guys, is Star Wars actually rubbish?
It really does.
Is at the back of everyone our age's heads.
Further to the other idea, which is that George Lucas just got really lucky. Surround himself with a lot of very, very talented people. We'll get into that in a second. Darth Vader, they had this idea they wanted it to be a riff on Dark Water. They liked the idea of like something that sounded similar to Dark Water. So they picked Darth. And one of our listeners can correct me on this potentially. Vader is a play on the Dutch-German word for father. Vater.
Yeah, I mean, it is basically the word father in a lot
meant to be
of
dark
European
father
languages.
Yeah, and all this was before.
That's a retcon, isn't it? Because they didn't think he was their father to begin with.
No, but as I say, that was why they called him that. But yeah, at this point, he wasn't Luke's father. There was no way. He was the guy that killed Luke's father. Throughout the whole of New Hope, that was still always the plan. So, all this despite not actually having the shock twist in place at the time. In second treatment, Darth Vader, he was a 7-foot-tall Black Knight of Sith, with features obscured by a long flowing cloak and breathing apparatus. The right-hand man to the Master of the Sith. This treatment also had him with a showdown with someone called Deke Starkiller, who then later became Obi-Wan Kenobi. Ralph McQuarrie was brought in to help sell the film to Fox. He said he needed to put Darth Vader into breathing apparatus because there was a belief that he was going to move between two ships at one point or another.
Okay.
He intentionally made the grill look like teeth when doing the designs for this as well. So there was literally a Dutch word for Vader. Thank you, Paz. It was on the fourth rewrite that Lucas then put in the backstory for Vader. Vader killed Luke's father, resulting in a duel between Ben Kenobi and Vader, which resulted in him falling into a volcanic pit, which is why he needed the suit and mask. This is pretty much exactly what happens in Revenge of the Sith as well. But like not much changes from this point. All the sketches from Ralph McQuarrie, all the sketches from Ralph McQuarrie were used to put together a suit. There is one Vader suit in New Hope, and it costs $1,173 to put together. John Molo was the costume designer for the original trilogy. He used sketches to put together a costume that drew influences from both samurais and World War I trench armor. The helmet was sculpted by Brian Muir, who was on the payroll of Elstree Studios at the time. Muir would then go on to be a sculptor for films like Alien. So the space jockey was him. Harry Potter
as well, wasn't it?
Was that sorry?
That was all done.
That was Elstree. Yeah. Basically anything at Elstree. Indiana Jones, the Ark of the Covenant. James Bond, Guardians of the Galaxy, a couple of the spaceships, and also the Stormtrooper helmets he designed as well.
Oh wow!
Sculpted. So like this guy was, the shit when it comes to sculpting. So they needed a man to fill the suit at this point, and that was bodybuilder David Prowse. He was basically the go-to big guy in a number of things up until this point. Played a Minotaur in Doctor Who, and he was a bodyguard in Clockwork Orange as well. He was offered the role of Chewbacca or Darth Vader, and decided to pick Darth Vader because he thought villains would be more memorable, and had no clue that he'd be wearing a mask the whole time at this point. Shooting starting in 1976 with getting in and out of costume was a bit of a hassle. The lightsaber fights in New Hope, the stunt coordinator devised a fighting technique that was somewhere between fencing and broadsword fighting, which meant that the bodybuilder David Prowse would regularly snap the lightsabers, apparently.
I think that they had a nightmare with them. They were really fragile.
Yeah.
Like, they had this little spinning, rotating, like a retro-reflective core.
Yeah.
To get the glow, and then they'd use that as the sort of the trace to rotoscope it out. It must have been an incredibly painstaking process.
It sounds
and let's be
crazy.
honest, looked a bit shit.
Yeah, and you can see why they're very kind of like tentative with them. Like, do we really need to hit them?
But there was also this stuff like about, I think Lucas was of the opinion that they should be heavy.
Yeah.
And like it should take effort to drag it around and swing it around, which never made a vast amount of sense.
No, he quickly shat that one out the window as well, didn't he? When the prequels happened.
Yeah, like, I don't know what. Like, I've never. It's whatever you imagine it. Really, I never thought they were completely weightless, because it is. It is matter, isn't it? The beam. It's like super accelerated plasma or some bollocks. But there's not very much of it. It wouldn't weigh a lot.
Even when I'm doing a lightsaber with a torch, like pretending a torch is a lightsaber, mentally it feels heavier than a torch. Like, yeah. I know it's not, but like I've always imagined them to have a little bit of weight to them. Yeah, kind of the same. Maybe not as heavy as a sword, but definitely enough to give you a bit of momentum on like a follow through with it as well. So, but yeah, the lightsaber fight does look a bit pants in New Hope, because I think they were scared to break the swords. Like, whatever they say about fighting styles somewhere between fencing and broadsword fighting, not much happens in it.
No, like, I don't think it was like now when they'd spend 6 months in sort of choreography training.
Yeah.
You gave Alec Guinness a sword and said, right, fight that guy. And basically just
Alec
let
Guinness,
him make it up as he went along.
Serious actor, and David Prowse, as Dan points out, the Green Cross Code Man, swords, and then asked them to duel, basically. So yeah, it's not necessarily going to work. David Prowse expected to be the voice of Vader. Okay.
I don't know why he thought that.
No one told him he wasn't going to be the voice of Vader. George Lucas had different thought. The first person he called was Orson Welles to be the voice of Darth Vader, which would have been interesting, but eventually went with James Earl Jones. James Earl Jones read his script in 2.5 hours. He came in.
There's not a lot to it, is there, really?
No, exactly. He came in, did his entire script in 2.5 hours, fucked off. Perhaps the unsung hero of what makes Vader Vader is Ben Burtt. Ben Burtt is a sound designer for A New Hope, and already given the lightsabers their distinctive sound, the sound of the blasters, and R2-D2's voice. Vader originally added a selection of bleeps, but decided they were too distracting. Can you imagine that? Like Vader in the corner, beep boop, beep boop, beep 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 boop. Yeah. So instead, he visited a scuba diving shop, put a mic in a regulator, and recorded him breathing in and out. And like, that's just like the signature. You would recognize hearing Darth Vader before you'd recognize seeing Darth Vader, I think. Like, it's such a moment in Rogue One, for example, like where it's all dark and you can hear him but you can't see him.
I do love all those stories about how they just go out and record weird stuff to get sounds, whereas now you can imagine a lot of it, someone sits down at a computer and starts twiddling parameters on some audio engineering program. Yeah,
well, it's the same with classic albums being recorded, isn't it? Billie Eilish.
The blaster sound is like metal cables, and then they're tapping it with something, and the sort of reverberatey.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, you can see them doing it on some videos that somebody shot of it.
It works so well.
It's not like somebody can watch.
The blaster sounds are amazing. Like they just sounds meaty, doesn't it? It's so well done and loud. It sounds incredibly loud. So then on to Empire Strikes Back. They made a few small changes to the costume, mostly adding to the comfort of David Prowse, letting him get in and out of them. And also they made numerous costumes this time, meaning that they could, if it broke, they could just replace the parts. Obviously, the big part of Empire Strikes Back is the reveal. They only told James Earl Jones, David Prowse, that was going to be the case. Up until then, the script didn't even have that. Him saying that he's Luke's father. Mark Hamill's reaction was entirely improvised, which is, I fucking love Mark Hamill. So like, he didn't know at that time. What was in the script was that he was telling him that he killed his father. So then when he comes out with that, then we get that reaction to it.
Oh, nice.
Which is awesome. Return of the Jedi, the only change there, they changed the helmet. And obviously we got a new Darth Vader for when the helmet came off, Sebastian Shaw. So fucking poor David Prowse.
Yeah.
Like, so like even at this point going, nah, you're not the right guy. So the helmet comes off, we'll get Sebastian Shaw. Okay, what about being a Force Ghost? Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, get Sebastian Shaw to be the Force Ghost as well. Poor David Prowse will be what I would say comes from this. Darth Vader, the man himself, the man in the costume, who is actually Darth Vader, gets no love throughout this franchise pretty much. So then Revenge of the Sith is the next time we saw him as Darth Vader. We got a lot of whiny Anakin up until then, but we don't really like to include that. First time we see inside the mask in Revenge of the Sith, which includes the computer hard drives, collar spikes, and nose plugs. And there is that
one. You get the shot of it sort of coming down at his face, don't you? Yeah.
My favourite bit at that point is when the mask turns on and you get a really high-pitched whine.
When you sort of hear him take his first breath as well.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's very cool.
That's the one good bit in it. But
then he ruins it 5 seconds later.
Yeah. No. Yeah, that's not good. Dan says David Prowse got screwed out of a paycheck as well. I'm sure he did. I have no doubt about that. But then that's the next time we saw Darth Vader, and really it was on the back of taking any kind of fear out of Darth Vader. And we thought that might be the end until Rogue One. And Rogue One brought back the scary Darth Vader as well. It's meant to signify the death of any of his humanity, is what's been said. That moment where he's just killing all the rebels on that spaceship is meant to signify him just like becoming the complete.
I didn't see that as like a moment where in Rogue One.
Yeah.
I didn't see that as like that's like a pivotal. I thought that was basically just another day at the office for him. Like by
Apparently
that
not.
point, I think I imagine that's just how he spends his time.
Well, no, he spends his time in a giant back tank trying to heal his legs, which is never going to happen, bless him. But the Castle of Mustafar was originally designed from like the second iteration of the drawings of Ralph McQuarrie.
Some real concept art for it, isn't there?
Yeah, and they used those for what it ends up looking like on Rogue One as well. Obviously, we get the incredibly funny joke as well about don't choke on your aspirations.
I don't mind it. I don't mind that joke.
I don't mind it. Like, he's dropping puns. It's not the first time we've heard Vader drop puns. Dan thinks he's already murdered kids way before that scene in Rogue One, but there's always that sense of regret, is the point. There is no regret about what he's doing in Rogue One.
I saw him fighting Obi-Wan as the moment he loses all traces of humanity.
That's a good shout. Yeah, but
you know,
I said, yeah.
It's Star Wars. You can interpret it how you will.
Apparently, Hayden Christensen nearly played Darth Vader in that scene in this film as well.
It wouldn't have mattered, would it? Because you don't see him.
I'd have still known. I wouldn't have liked it. I'd have known. I don't want that, really. So yeah, Darth Vader, badass, right?
Yeah, pretty cool. So I mean, like, I don't think there was much doubt about his progress through to the final.
No, to the Eastern Conference final.
Yeah, in his conference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't think there are any close calls or particularly like, oh, that's a tough one matchups with him. It's more like, well, so long, whoever's up next to Vader.
Yeah. Do we announce who's gone through yet?
I can bring up the thingy. He's in the East, isn't he?
Yeah. Or do we announce who's gone through from each of the conferences?
Well, I mean, people have seen this already.
Have they?
Yeah.
No, but these are the finalists for each conference, right? I'm talking about we know who wins each conference.
Oh yeah, no. So I'm not sure. So this is just the showing the final of the East Conference. So who's Darth Vader? He's taken out the operative, the Sheriff of Nottingham.
Yeah.
Scar.
Yeah.
And Magneto on his way to
screen closer.
the East final.
Yeah.
So some he didn't have an easy time of it. There's some pretty big hitters in there.
Should we do the Joker then next?
Yeah, so that's his East Conference final opponent.
This is a story that starts in...
I was sad to see the Sheriff of Nottingham go so early, but
there
wasn't a lot of chance, I suppose.
There's been a few in this one that I am quite surprised by. I'll leave that there. The Joker. Let's start in 1940. The Joker was created by Jerry Robinson, Bill Finger, and Bob Kane.
Oh, this is going to take hours, isn't it?
Yeah, buckle up, guys.
History of the
Joker. To be in Batman #1. This comic was also the first appearance of Catwoman and the first time we see Batman's origin story as well. First of millions of times we see Batman's origin story. There are 3 different accounts of the origin story, depending on who you ask, whether it's Bill Finger, depending who you asked, Bill Finger, Bob Kane, or Jerry Robinson. The general consensus seems to be that Jerry Robinson designed a Joker playing card design. Bill Finger then took inspiration from a clown-faced logo from Coney Island and a picture of Conrad Veidt, who played a permanently disfigured, constantly grinning character in the 1928 movie The Man Who Laughs, which is relevant because that is also the name of a storyline in the comics as well. Robinson and Kane were credited for the creation of both Batman and the Joker up until very recently, before Bill Finger actually got some credit that he thoroughly deserved for it. It's a bit like Schuster and Siegel with Superman, them just not getting any of the credits they deserved for Superman. Bill Finger was frozen out because Bob Kane turned out to be a bit of a twat, basically. Up until this point, Batman had fought in Detective Comics fairly typical mobster types. Batman was created because that was the big problem in America at the moment, in their eyes, was the rise of the mobster, the rise of organized crime. Much like Superman was created to be an all-American hero to pull people together, Batman was created to deal with mobsters. And this was the first villain that wasn't a typical mobster, essentially. He was a psychotic killer at this point, between 1940 and 1942. Joker went on maniacal killing sprees using his signature venom, which is still something we see today in iterations of the Joker. This point, though, we hit a more elaborate era of the Joker, setting comical traps and heists. You'll have seen them in all kinds of different early doors comics, as the Comic Code Authority came in as well in 1954. These became much, not necessarily tamer, but they became much more comical, much sillier. You might have seen the slot machine that he used to try and kill Batman and Robin. And then this obviously leads to what we saw in the 1966 version of the Joker as well. I think it's the first live action. I might be wrong on that. But the first live action Joker, played by Cesar Romero, who refused to shave his fucking mustache. But it still looks amazing. I love the Cesar Romero version of the Joker. The 1966 Batman doesn't get enough credit because it was like, I can't imagine a world where you don't have you love Batman and then someone actually brings him to life, and I don't care how goofy it's going to be, if this is what you've got, then you're probably going to like it. Once again, taking on the comical ways that he employs to kill Batman and Robin throughout the series, but equally still quite scary. I remember being a kid when watching it and still being quite scared of Cesar Romero's Joker. Like, he looks like the Joker.
Pretty sinister.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think he does a really good job. Like, the whole the feel of that series is very, I want to say comical again, but it is very kind of tongue in cheek. But still, there's something, as you say, quite sinister about Cesar Romero's Joker.
Yeah.
From this, the comic wanted to take Batman in a darker direction. That's where Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams came in, taking Batman and the Joker into a darker direction, which then saw Frank Miller's rebranding of Batman as well, in things like Dark Knight Returns, in which we see the Joker that was seemingly cured, but then isn't. I don't want to ruin it. If anyone hasn't read it, it's really good, worth a read. But that led to a perfect storm of, I'm trying to hop between what gets to like the live action versions of the Joker or the TV version of the Joker. The 1989 Batman movie portrayed by Jack Nicholson, which I didn't realize this was a thing, but apparently this was the role he was considered to be born to play. And when you watch it, you can see it. The man is chewing the scenery. Well, he's chewing all of the scenery. There is no scenery left by the time the end of the film, but he is so perfect in that role.
Yeah, it's. I think it is. Though that era of Batman movies is very easy to look down on now, but they were all good.
Yeah. Oh, I think you've frozen, Russ. For me, yeah. Hello.
Well, I can still hear me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's really all that matters, as long as I can hear me.
I can hear you.
Yeah, the Tim Burton ones are cracking.
They're great. And once again, they were dark at the time, because up until then, in terms of live action Batman, what we'd had was the 1966 series.
Yeah. And like, it looked ridiculous, but that crazy gothic version of Gotham, which doesn't look like a real place at all, is a lot more enjoyable than the Dark Knight versions, where it's just like, well, I recognise that and it all just looks very realistic.
It is. I went on a trolley. We'll get to that in a second. But then potentially everyone's two favourite versions of the Joker. So we had Mark Hamill doing the voice for the animated series Joker, which is, I think, my favourite version, and I think a lot of people's favourite version. He is incredible in that. Just he was born to be the Joker. Like, he is Luke Skywalker, but he is so good at doing the Joker that it just works so well. That whole animated series is a perfect melting pot of everyone at the top of their game at the right time, and it still looks fantastic as well. They've done an amazing job there. And then we got the punk rock Joker, 20 years after Jack Nicholson, and this is the one that made it through, because Nicholson didn't make it through. The Heath Ledger version of the Joker arrived in The Dark Knight, the sequel to Batman Begins, the Christopher Nolan versions of the Batman films, of Batman. Role he got a posthumous award for. I say he's a punk rock version of the Joker, bringing back the mystery to the role as well. Ledger's Joker is heavily scarred anarchist, always one step ahead of the main lead as well. That's what I love about him. Like, this Joker is always... There's so much that goes on in that film, and at every point, until the end, and whether I like the end is a different matter, but until the end, he is always one step ahead of the game. And I really like it. And as you say, it's a more gritty, realistic Gotham as well, because it's Chicago. It's just Chicago. Like, I went on a trolley tour. They didn't really
make much effort to try and make it not look like Chicago.
No, they almost made an effort to make it look like Chicago. I went on a trolley tour in Chicago, and they every stop was, and this was this scene from The Dark Knight. And now if we go around the corner, and this was this scene from The Dark Knight, and this was the bridge scene from The Dark Knight, where the lorry flips over the Joker, and like, so much of it was filmed, and you can see it. You're like, yeah, this looks exactly like that bit in The Dark Knight. So
yeah, it's some pretty well-known locations and streets and things that they used. Except for those bits where it's just very obviously New York.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Gotham's just Gotham, isn't it? It's not. People say it's meant to be Chicago. People say it's meant to be New York. It's probably something.
I don't think it's meant to be a specific city. I always saw it as more of like a mix of like New York and Chicago. It's the sort of the older, more East Coast style cities.
Yeah. What do you think of Heath Ledger's Joker then, Russ?
I mean, I really enjoy it. I don't think there's not going to be a prick and try and pick it apart. It is an absolutely astonishing performance. It is taking something that we've not seen before and doing really interesting things with it.
Yeah, and
he is scary as well as being ridiculous.
Every I think Hans Zimmer gets some credit for this as well. There is so much tension in this film.
Yeah, so especially when he's on screen, because you just do not know what's going to happen or what he's going to do. Because it's not even like he'll do things that are not rational and are not in his own self-interest, because his mind does not work like you would expect one to.
No, but he damages the psyche of anyone that he comes up against in that film as well, and it's brilliant to watch. Like the bit where he's at the party with the knife, and I think that's the first time he mentions about his scars. And like it's been done so many times in spoofs. At that point it was still like you're on the edge of your seat and you don't know what he's going to do next. And even though he's got his knife in the person's mouth, you're still like, he's not going to do it. And then he does it. And it's, you don't see it. It's cuts away just in time, but still, it's pretty grim.
Yeah.
Dan says he thinks the first Batman was set in New York. I think it was set in Chicago, because I think Batman originally was meant to deal with. I think when Batman first started, it was set in New York. I think
when it was in Action Comics.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain it was meant to be Chicago. It was meant to deal with organised crime.
I don't know nothing about that sort of stuff.
And then Superman had New York with Metropolis.
Well, that is a question that can very easily be answered by going to Wikipedia.
Yeah, well, Dan's my Superman go-to. He knows so much about him, so he would know that as well. So I trust that maybe he could be right and I could be wrong on that one. But Heath Ledger's Joker it's understandable how he's made it this far as well. Like, he is, of the last 20 years, probably one of the best known villains that we've seen. One of the more interesting villains we've seen as well. Yeah,
I mean, probably one of the apart from like Thanos, one of the more recent villains on here.
One of the more recent villains and one of the most interesting comic villains we've had in a while as well.
Yeah.
I've also very specifically...
Who did he beat? So the Kurgan, I mean, bit of a cult favourite there. So probably wasn't very much of a... But then Hannibal Lecter in the second round. That is a tough day for anybody. And then Ursula, going classic Disney.
I thought Ursula was going to go all the way at one point, because like she had beaten Hans Lander
and Oogie Boogie.
Yeah, maybe not that big a deal, but yeah.
And then taking out Palps himself in the semi-final.
There was part of me that thought we might get a Vader Palpatine final here.
Yeah.
I have written here as well, and then there have been no more versions of the Joker, except for what's his face in the movie Joker, Joaquin Phoenix in the movie Joker. But between Joaquin Phoenix's version of the Joker and Heath Ledger's version of the Joker, there have been no other versions of him.
Yeah.
Right? I don't remember one.
Nothing that left any sort of impression.
No, definitely. Well, maybe. Maybe. Not a good one, though. So, do we want to know who went through out of these two? Should we announce one of them now?
Yeah, go for it.
I was surprised.
So it's Vader or the Joker. I mean, like, there is not an obvious answer here.
I was still surprised, though. I'm going to take a beer first.
Dan's taking a tension drink.
The Joker went through.
Whoa!
I know, right?
Yeah, well,
so the Joker is our first finalist. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. I mean, I think there's not a bad answer to that, is there? Like, you're not going to feel disappointed if one of those does.
I'd like to have seen Vader go through.
But then I'd also like to see the Joker go through.
I'd like to see Vader go through, but I'm fine with it. So, okay, right. Next up, then, these ones might be a bit quicker because so much of Thanos' backstory is just unfathomable bullshit. So, I desperately tried to truly get to grips with. Bassa said boo. To truly get to grips with Thanos' backstory, you'd need to have read all the storylines he's been involved in. And I'll be honest, I've read some of them, I haven't read all of them. And it's quite confusing unless you've actually read them.
Yeah.
Thanos first appeared in Invincible Iron Man number 55 by writer Jim Starlin. It goes without saying that Thanos drew inspiration from Jack Kirby's creation Darkseid. And Starlin created him in a psychology class, I believe, prior to working in Marvel Comics, before he was invited to do an issue of Iron Man. Thanos was initially much skinnier before editor Roy Thomas suggested making him broader, saying that if they were going to steal from the new gods, they might as well rip them off fully. So fair play, which is, they did basically rip off Darkseid for Thanos there. Thanos has then since then, the Mad Titan has gone on to court death against Captain Marvel, Secret Defenders, Thor, the Avengers, X-Men, the Hulk, Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, Cable. Well, he was Cable at one point. I don't know whether he still is. I can't keep up with comics anymore. I've kind of had to give up. Character Thanos originally was a pacifist throughout his school years, but became fascinated with nihilism, entropy, leading him to court the embodiment of death in Mistress Death. Thanos then used his combination of science, mysticism, and cybernetics to become the ultimate villain. Thanos used his powers to find the cosmic cube, using it to make him omnipotent until the Avengers destroyed the cosmic cube. I haven't read that, I'll be honest.
Yeah, some very weird stuff with his whole he's destroying half the universe to impress his girlfriend aspect of it.
Yeah, I get it though. Thanos then started siphoning power from adult Warlock, who had a little trinket called a Soul Gem, which is part of the Infinity Gems. Ever heard of them? Mm-hmm. To impress his main squeeze, Lady Death again. Warlock summons the Avengers and Captain Marvel again to defeat Thanos. Thanos, it suddenly makes sense, Dan says. We're talking about Thanos, though, in the movies. Thanos is the mastermind of the Infinity Saga, attempting to unite all the Infinity Stones, and it's played by Josh Brolin, that we already know. Prior to filming, ILM got Josh Brolin to demonstrate a wide variety of emotions for a facial scanning system called Medusa, and they put all the facial scans into Medusa, then combined it with his mocap work whilst filming Infinity War and Endgame, and then plopped them all into a system called Masquerade that used machine learning to combine the facial expressions and what he did on set to create a high-res image that was then given to the animators to work their magic to create Thanos. There we go.
Yeah, it's a in terms of like a CG character, it is an absolute standout.
It's crazy.
But by the time you get to Infinity War, you go back and look at when you first get a glimpse of him, he looks like one of Ronald McDonald's mates.
He doesn't look good.
It's not good. He's too purple. It's the armor is silly. The floating chair is silly. But by the time it gets to Infinity War, like the way like the light sort of shine, the subsurface scattering in his skin, the way the light catches the tiny little sort of stubbly hairs on him, and just the facial capture work is amazing.
Yeah,
so with really those characters, it's always, even if something is completely like motion capture driven or facial performance capture driven, there's still a huge amount of work that the animators do. It's very much a team effort. I think those when there's awards for these types of characters, it should not, it's not just down to the motion capture actor, because all that is it's like the base reference for the performance, but they do not just take those movements and send them straight through the pipeline to the finished result. Every frame is handcrafted as well, if they're putting time and money and effort into it.
Both Medusa for the capturing the facial expressions and Masquerade for putting the mocap and the facial expressions together have both won awards.
Yeah,
it's fairly obvious to see.
Incredible. Because when you animating a face is one of the hardest things to do in CG. It's quite incredibly difficult. And if you want to look at, when it goes badly, look at Superman's lip with the tash removal. That is the hardest part of a face to animate, apparently, the lip, because the way all the muscles and tendons and skin connect, if you move anything, something around here is going to move as well. So you can't just and that stays still, and the rest of their face is moving because you stuck a picture of Henry Cavill with no tash on there.
I was about to say, I think you find you can do it. I mean, it looks terrible, but
it looked very bad. It looked distracting. It wasn't even just that. Oh, there's something a little bit off there. It was, man, what the fuck has happened to his face?
Yeah,
that is a handsome face, and it is frightening me right now. What's going on?
Someone has repainted the Mona Lisa with that one. That's not good. Yeah.
The that visual effects channel that I follow on YouTube, the Corridor Crew channel, they've done a moustache cut of Superman where they've put the tash into the rest of the movie, so you've got a full tash version of loads of scenes.
I like it. I'll have to watch that. Have they done the butthole version of Cats yet?
I mean, they've talked about it. I don't think anyone actually wants to see that.
I want to see that. Like, that is the craziest thing.
The problem is, though, you would also have to be watching Cats.
I'd watch it. That's the only way I'm ever going to watch that film is if we put the buttholes back into it.
Mm-hmm.
Someone decided that was a good idea. That blows my mind every single time that someone decided, let's do a version of this with the cat's arseholes in it.
Yeah,
I gotta see it. I've got to see it because it wasn't like they just had the idea; they did it. They actually did it, and then went back and went, "Nah, remove the arseholes." It wasn't just like some crazy idea on a whiteboard. They did this, and I've got to see it now. I've got to see those cat's arseholes.
You have access to a cat, don't you?
That's different.
You can peer at a cat's butthole anytime you want.
It's not the same though. Like, I can't get my head
get the
around
Blu-ray
it.
of Cats, watch it, and then just hold your own cat's arsehole up to the screen in the right places.
I don't know.
And then you'll get I think what you need to achieve maximum satisfaction is a combination of looking at a cat's arsehole and hearing Judi Dench and James Corden's voices.
Yeah, I mean that's the ultimate night in, really, isn't it?
That's what you need, isn't it?
Yeah. No, come on. If they release the arsehole mix, you will watch it.
The arsehole mix.
Yeah, release the butthole cut. Come on, we got the Snyder cut. That was average. Let's get the butthole mix of Cats.
Sure.
Let's live a little. We're getting everything. Apparently, there's going to be a new version of the Air cut of Suicide Squad. There's going to be a new version of what's the other Snyder one that was rubbish? We talked about it last week. Sucker Punch. Yeah, we're getting a new version of that. Give us the butthole mix of Cats. Just give us it, please. Yeah, I like Thanos. He is one of few CGI characters that actually looks, I want to say real, but you know what I mean. Like, he interacts with the other characters really well.
Yeah.
It's not like when you've seen Jar Jar Binks talking to Ewan McGregor.
He looks real for the world that he's in.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are some shonky CGI moments in the Marvel movies, even the later ones.
Definitely.
The big fight in Wakanda, the bit where Bruce sticks his head out of the
it
big
looks awful.
Hulk suit, and he's got like a 5-foot long neck.
Yes, and it seems to move within the suit as well.
Yeah, like there are some dodgy bits, and like bad CG is more often than not, it's a case of budget or time not being there rather than people being incompetent. There's only, if you've got 2 days to turn around a shot, there is only so much that you can do. Or if there wasn't enough thought put into something during principal photography and you've been left with an impossible task, that kind of thing. So normally when CG is bad, it is for a reason rather than somebody made a mistake. But even in those Marvel movies, there are some sort of slightly iffy shots.
Yeah. Is there a butthole mix of Thanos though? I don't know. I could probably find one.
I don't know if you ever see his arse, do you? Don't think so.
No.
Maybe if you pause it just right in the big fight scene at the end.
I'm playing Resident Evil Village at the moment, and I'm way behind everyone else. I finally got to Lady Dimitrescu, and I kind of understand why there's a lot of thirsty people out there falling in love with this 9'6" lady. I'm not saying I do,
Yeah.
but I get why other people are. So yeah,
Yes. Well, subscribe to Dan's other channels where he does hot tub Twitch streaming.
you know it. Well, no, is there any money in that now? Is that a thing?
Oh, that is very much a thing.
Oh no, I know it's a thing, but like, didn't they take away like all advertising revenue from it?
I don't know. Broadly, it's one of those, you know, when there's like some websites and you see an article pop up and you think there is nothing in this that has any relevance to my life. I'm not looking at that. And talking about like
I tend to like to read these
VTubers
things.
and things like that. I just think this may as well be happening on another planet. I'm not going to bother reading that.
Okay, so we're into it now. We're into the weeds. I don't have a problem with hot tub Twitch streaming. Like, it's just essentially Babe Station, right?
I mean, I only have a problem with it in that it's a sort of grubby workaround of the rules so that Twitch can say to advertisers, we don't allow sexual content on our platform, while still happily making money off of selling adverts that run next to channels showing teenage girls floating around in hot tubs.
Yeah.
You've hardly got the high ground there, have you?
No, but
But where this is something that people get very, very worked up about, and I would say to those people, just watch porn. So much simpler.
Or the hot tub. There's a hot tub section now on Twitch, so that's good. So if you still like watching Twitch streamers in hot tubs, then
yeah, I think they have. After
great.
there's a bit of fuss about it. I think they have sort of hived it off so that they can take the advertising off of it. But Twitch are not a company that cover themselves in glory when it comes to this sort of stuff.
I mean, yeah, not like YouTube.
Well, I mean, you know, none of them are really, because it comes to that
But they're not
unfortunate
watching
bit
this.
where your morals and your purpose and all that sort of stuff crash headlong into how you make your money.
100%. Anyway, Thanos is a really good villain. Worked really well in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I don't agree with anyone that thinks, you know what, Thanos was right. No, he wasn't. He's talking about wiping out half of all life. That's never a solution to anything.
No.
So,
Like, that is not to say that obviously there would be, and they talk about this in the films as well, like some things would have been better in certain ways if the population of everything is reduced by half, but that does not mean that it was a good thing to do.
no, that's not the correct solution to that problem.
I mean, he's been fairly unambiguously presented as the baddie
Yeah.
over this.
Yeah.
And
There's moments when you feel sympathetic
think
because he
if
is like
Falcon
mummy
and Winter
daughter
Soldier
moments.
had not been quite such a mess plot-wise, there could have been some really interesting stuff to look into there.
What's that one, sorry?
In Falcon and Winter Soldier, although like you don't really get a sense of it, but that's meant to be basically the terrorist group's motivation, isn't it?
It's slightly more than that because what's happened is because there's less governing bodies around to stop them moving from country to country to actually be comfortable. They've managed to find their fair share basically, and it wasn't necessarily that
it's not well done in that show, is it? You don't really have a clear sense of who these people are, what happened to them, why they're so angry, any of that stuff.
Yeah,
So
that's fair.
I'm a big fan of the conspiracy theory that there was a whole bunch of stuff cut out because it was all about viruses.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I think that might very well be.
It makes sense because it is not like plot wise. A lot of that show doesn't make sense, or is just very unsatisfying.
I think there's like 2-3 really solid episodes in there.
Great character stuff, great action stuff, great chemistry, but plot-wise, it just following on from WandaVision, which was so tight in that respect. Never mind.
Yep. It's Thanos. He made it through, obviously.
He big, he purple, he scary.
He big, he purple. Doesn't look like a cock. What? Hans Gruber was the other one.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up the West.
Let's do it.
Bracket. So Thanos took out the Velociraptors from Jurassic Park. I mean, fucking hell. Loki, in a literal reenactment of something that actually happens. Dracula and Voldemort.
And happy National Dracula Day, by the way.
And then
Which is a thing,
over on the other
apparently.
side, the absolute epitome
He
of
froze
the
me.
sophisticated British villain, even though he's not British.
Who? Voldemort.
Yeah.
No, you froze, so I missed that. So,
Oh no, talking about Gruber.
oh, Gruber, yes. So, Hans Gruber, first major role for Alan Rickman. He, the famous scene with Gruber's death. This is one of my favorite things. I haven't got much on Gruber, so it won't take long.
This is
he was-
good story.
He's dropped 70 feet, and they let him go sooner than he expected. So the look of shock on his face is actual, real shock because he's just been dropped 70 feet without anyone telling him he's about to be dropped.
It was a case of like, we'll drop you on 3, and then they went on 2 type situation.
And apparently he just never forgave him for that. So apparently he was genuinely annoyed about it, which makes sense. But it looks so good in the film.
It does look good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The scene where Gruber pretends to be an escaped hostage named Bill Clay was not originally included in the script, but apparently he'd practiced a convincing American accent, so they wanted to include it in there. And according to other actors, Rickman researched to perfect his German accent and was even able to achieve the German-English dialect throughout the film. Hans Gruber is just a really good bad guy. And what I would say about Hans Gruber, for starters, Empire had him ranked 17th in the greatest movie characters of all time. John McClane was 12th, although I'd probably swap them. He kind of spawned that movie villain.
Yeah, I mean,
don't
if
think that
you
really
look
existed
at
till
the
then.
sort of the Hans Gruber type and think, it's a bit overdone and overplayed.
Yeah.
He was the first one of the suave, sophisticated, besuited. You know, he's not a psychopath. He's not crazy. He's just executing very ruthlessly on his plan.
And it became a bit of a 90s thing, didn't it?
Yeah,
Like
but
the-
like
the-
if you think about action movies before Die Hard, so like Bruce Willis as an action hero was a really unlikely prospect at that time. He was not seen in that way. You know, this is when it was like Arnie and Sylvester Stallone and people like that who don't look like actual humans. They were your action stars, and movies were sort of like Die Hard's actually quite small scale. Really, isn't it? It's a small, it's one building, it's a small group of people. I mean, obviously some crazy shit happens, but it's just like a cop and some robbers, really, when you come down to it.
It's a really simple plot.
Yeah.
And it's entirely elevated by the characters in it, including Gruber, who is an amazing villain. And as we say, it's become kind of an archetype now. It's a bit of a cliche, and really it's because Alan Rickman did such a good job with Hans Gruber. Probably putting some of that genuine pissed offness into it, because he was dropped 71st without being told he was going to be dropped. I loved that. I loved reading that. That's just so good. So, like, I'm never going to be able to watch that with a straight face again because he falls in slow motion, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, you only really see him fall a foot or two, but they couldn't have a mat just underneath him, could they? He had to see that he was over nothing.
But that look, the fact that he's not really acting there now really adds something to it. It's so good. I can't believe they used it as well. Brilliant. Hans Gruber's a great bad guy, but there really isn't too much to talk about him. Alan Rickman kind of just kills the role. Alan Rickman, you couldn't put anyone else in that role, and it wouldn't be Hans Gruber. This is not something. I mean, writers had something to do with it, but this is mostly about an actor really taking on a role and making it their own. And that's what Hans Gruber's done. I've not got too much to add on to that, unfortunately.
I think he brought quite a lot to that. It was not just a I'll read the lines out type situation.
100%. So Gruber made it through versus Thanos.
Yep. So who did Gruber take out on his way? Hades, probably not much of a threat there. Hal, personal favourite of mine, but then so is Gruber.
I would have. Anton Chigurh should have beaten Hal. I stand by that. Anton Chigurh should be in the final. Anton Chigurh is one of the best villains.
And they took out the Alien Queen and the Terminator. So,
Pretty good
I
going.
mean, fairly hefty opposition faced on the way to the final there for Hans Gruber.
And winning
So,
the match.
Out of
Yeah.
Gruber and Thanos, who goes through to the Super Bowl?
The purple giant dildo himself, Thanos,
What?
makes it through. And we've got Thanos versus the Joker in the final.
Thanos and the Joker.
Not, I mean,
showdown.
if I'd have had a guess, I would have gone Gruber, Vader.
I think Gruber Vader was what I would have put money on at the start of this.
But yeah. But no, yeah, Thanos, the Joker.
Blimey.
That will go up some point this week, I'm sure.
Yep. So look out for the polls popping up on Twitter and Instagram. If you're feeling particularly strong about this, get registering those fake accounts now.
Do it. Or just use like podcast accounts or whatever. That's what I mean, that's what other people do. So it's a couple of other things we want to talk about. Did you see the Eternals trailer?
I did. I watched it today. Looking
I really
very
like it.
not. It looks Marvel and not Marvel. I think this is going to be very different to some of the stuff that we've seen before, which is
They didn't show a single
good.
action scene. Yeah.
There's been 400 of these movies so far, so
Yeah.
there's room for some difference there.
It looks like we're going to get very different characters in this film as well.
Yeah, I mean it's looking epic in a way that Marvel movies have not been so far. I mean, it covers basically the entirety of human civilization by the looks of things. So
I don't think it's
That's
going to be
quite
all
cool.
fighting as well, which is nice.
yeah,
It looks amazing, and if you haven't, read Neil Gaiman's Eternals. It's really, really good. Two other trailers that I want to talk about as well.
mm-hmm.
Sorry, Bass says, I feel like the fact that Vader and Gruber lost shows a different generation is taking over in these things, not our old asses who grew up with them.
Yeah.
Possibly. Doesn't everyone watch Die Hard at Christmas now, though? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I do probably have to say that most of the people voting on this are old people like us.
Yeah, like most of them voted and then sent me a message saying, get off my lawn. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
'Cause I imagine most younger people are just having sex on TikTok at the moment,
I'm pretty certain that's how it works, right?
as far as I understand it. Yeah.
That's how you do a TikTok,
Hmm.
from what I understand. Two other films I want to mention. I mean, I love movie trailers, but yeah, a couple of other films that we've just seen trailers for that I'm kind of obsessed with. Gunpowder Milkshake. Did you watch this one?
I'm not familiar with this one. No. Who's this?
Karen Gillan does John Wick, basically.
Okay,
It's
I'm in.
support
I'm
of,
100% invested in this.
Other lady actors forming a group of like, we'll watch it afterwards. It looks awesome. Looks really, really good. And slightly different, the Edgar Wright movie Last Night in Soho.
Yeah, I've seen this one. This looks incredible. Although
It looks so good.
I think it does look like it owes a huge debt to Goodnight Sweetheart.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking that as well.
No, it looks very cool. Like ultra stylish. It looks like
Yeah.
almost looks a bit like a sort of a Gaspar Noé type vibe to it.
Yes.
But hopefully it will make sense.
I think it probably will. This is Edgar Wright, and I think it will be, well, obviously involve a lot of music as well. What I like about it, it looks fantastic. It looks like he's doing a horror film for starters.
Yeah, it
as
looks
well.
scary.
Yeah.
In a way that we haven't really seen him playing with before.
I mean, Shaun of the Dead.
But that's sort of a
Yeah.
splattery hammer horror type scary. This
Yeah.
looks like a more sort of psychological thriller type scary.
Yeah, it does look good. It's got Anna Taylor-Joy in, who I think is an excellent actor. She was fantastic in The Witch. I know it's called The Witch, but whatever. And also one of my
And Queen's Gambit, obviously.
I've never watched Queen's Gambit.
I mean, it's very good.
I've heard that. I will watch it, but currently watching Superstore.
That's also
and
very good.
I'm really enjoying
really,
it.
really good.
We'll talk about that in a second. And Thomasin McKenzie, who was in Leave No Trace. Is it Leave Without Trace? I can't remember. That was my favourite film of that year, but I can't remember the title of it. Leave Without Trace. And more recently, Jojo Rabbit. She was the girl in the cupboard in Jojo Rabbit, and she's fantastic in both those things that I've seen. So I would imagine this will be more of the same. So this film looks excellent. Very, very excited about that.
Yeah.
Anything you've been up to?
Just hitting Mass Effect, really.
How's that going? I haven't started it yet.
Absolutely. I think it's like we said last time. It plays like you remember it, which means how the Mako drove in the original must have been so bad, because it's quite bad in this, and it's been massively improved.
Yeah.
It's just a lovely experience going back. There is loads of stuff I don't remember in Mass Effect, which is good. Because it's so, I think just because it's so big, and I deliberately chose different backstory stuff, so you do get a couple of different assignment missions, I think, depending on what you chose as your like your origin path and that kind of stuff.
Nice.
So
had to give it a go. I've heard good things. I'm sure it's all right.
Yep. No, I'm enjoying it.
Kind of want to complete Resident Evil Village before I move on though, because if I don't complete it, I know me. And I won't go back to it because I'll be like, I'm not going to play the scary game anymore. So I need to just play it. And you say you've been watching Superstore as well?
Yeah, so Shah was watching it, and I've kind of like, I've seen probably about a third of the episodes, and really, so we're going to go back and watch it properly all the way through. It's. I mean, if you are a fan of inoffensive American workplace sitcoms.
Yeah,
it's an excellent one,
and deals with real issues as well.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose you would come across as starting to be a bit bullshitty if you tried to have a thing set in a big box store in the US and didn't talk about things like employment contracts and health benefits and immigration and
unionization.
Maternity affects people and all that sort of stuff. But they actually. They lean into that stuff and get some really good stories out of it.
I'm so surprised. I kind of put it on a whim, expecting a truly terrible show because the trailers they've got on Netflix make it look not very good.
I think those trailers are like generated by some Netflix AI. I don't think they're actual trailers.
That they think that these are the jokes that people are going to enjoy, but it's way better than that. So, but I'm also rewatching Parks and Recreation as well.
Nice.
And I've just re-caught up on The 100. Did you ever watch it?
No.
It's okay. Like it's not. I've kind of got into it, so it's good. But like for me, there's still BSG, Expanse, Firefly here, and then there's like these other ones that are quite close to it. But I've really enjoyed rewatching it. But I only rewatched it because I wanted to catch up because I've never watched season 6, and Amazon Prime promised me it was on there, so I rewatched season 5, and then Amazon Prime have got it to buy on there rather than. So it kind of I wasted kind of some time rewatching something I'd already watched. But there we go. That's it. I think we're done.
Boom.
Should I close this out?
Yeah, I think I was just sort of sitting here waiting for Tom to chirp up. So yes, that's it from us for this time. We're going to go away now, sit in our houses, and then we'll come back in about a week or so, and we'll do another one. That sound good? Great.
Shall I do like the social medias and stuff?
You do that bit because then I can press the button that makes them come up while you're talking about it.
Oh, there you go.
I like doing that. That's my favourite bit.
So if you want to contact us, hit us up on Twitter or Instagram. It's at TMTOOH.
I did it. I pressed the button. They're up there.
Did you?
Yeah. You can't see it.
Done,
you keep going. They can see it. You can't see it.
And then come join our Discord. We are constantly talking about all things comic-y, filmy, gamey, all kinds of stuff. If you come join the Discord, it's a lot of fun. The link is on both the Twitter pinned to the top and on our Instagram bio. Bass quickly has just said, see, we don't need the other guys. Yeah, fuck them.
Correct.
And Dan says Anton Sugar should have gotten to the final at least, and I agree, Dan. I'm 100% with you. He's one of my favourite bad guys. And Bass has also said, go watch Queen's Gambit. So I might just do that now.
Queen's Gambit's really good. You can get through it pretty quickly.
I have heard that. I might watch it. I've got to do some washing up, so I might watch Queen's Gambit while I'm washing up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it, social media-wise. Oh, a couple of pods went up this week because I'm clearing my backlog because I had a bit of free time. Our last pod went up. 2 Marvel pods went up. our Invincible review. Have you watched that yet, Russ?
No.
It's really fucking good. Really good. Well worth a watch. And top 5 Keanu films that aren't John Wick, Matrix, or Bill and Ted.
I mean,
That's what we've just done.
The Notebook.
Was he in The Notebook?
No, what am I thinking? What's the
Lake
one where
House.
he's the Lake House? Is that the one
Yeah.
I'm thinking of? Yeah.
That didn't make my list, funnily enough.
No.
Constantine was my number 1.
I do enjoy Constantine.
I really like Constantine. So, Constantine, Replacements, Point Break, Dracula is another one he was in.
Devil's Advocate, Johnny Mnemonic.
Devil's Advocate. How did I forget that? Loads of other ones as well that I'm trying to remember now that I can't quite remember. He's been in loads of films, isn't it? My honourable mention was Keanu, the film Keanu with the cat, who, when he does eventually talk, it turns out to be Keanu Reeves doing the voice, which I really liked. But it was a fun pod to put together, and you realise that Keanu Reeves has done a load of really good films. Well, films I enjoyed. So yeah, Johnny Mnemonic, Scanner Darkly. There we go, a couple of extra ones there. I'm done.
Boom.
Shall I take us out?
You have to say, cue the music.
Okay, thank you for watching, guys. As Baz says, go watch Invincible now.
Sure.
It is really good. Baz is our biggest proponent for Invincible, so yeah, go watch it. Thank you for joining us on the stream. If you've listened to the podcast, I mean, you can watch us on this stream we do, 9 o'clock every Wednesday. I'm not saying you definitely should do it, but I mean, it would be nice if you came and enjoyed our company. Trying to be as passive-aggressive as Tom, and I'm failing miserably. Anyway.
You should see it as an opportunity. If we say stuff that gets you really angry, if you come and watch us stream it, you can shout that shit right at us instead of just howling into the void.
Exactly. Unless you prefer howling into the void, which I totally understand as well. I'm off to howl into the void, actually, now. So, goodbye, everyone.
Is it?
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for watching / listening. With that, cue the music.